3 Sinister Janitor Tales Unveiled, terrifying true stories of haunted halls and cursed secrets. Leah had grown accustomed to the dim light of the Bracken Junior High hallways. Every stroke of her mop seemed to echo loudly into the silence, as if the very walls were pressing in, eager to share secrets from their long-hidden past. But tonight felt different. A cold shiver went down her spine as a familiar unease draped over her like a thick fog. The rumors of the school's haunted history crept into her mind, clinging to her thoughts, twisting around her heart. She couldn't shake the feeling that there were eyes watching her from the shadows waiting. With each flicker of the fluorescent lights, Leah recalled the horror stories whispered among parents at the grocery store. Tales of shadowy figures lurking in the corners, of echoes of children's laughter that turned to wails. Just urban legends, she told herself, trying to erase the knot in her stomach. Yet, it was hard to dismiss the cold drafts that whispered through the empty classrooms or the soft, scratching noises that made her look over her shoulder. They were always there, unnerving yet undeniable. As she pushed the janitorial cart down the hall, she thought of Jake, her teenage son. He was home alone, battling boredom while she was stuck in this eerie place. He needed her, just like she needed him. Their small family had to hold each other up. But tonight, the weight of darkness felt heavier, suffocating. The shadows seemed to stir a flicker of movement here, a faint whisper there. With every creak of the floorboards beneath her feet, Leah's pulse quickened. Suddenly, a loud thud erupted from the cafeteria, freezing Leah in her tracks. The sound reverberated through the building, raw with terror. A bead of sweat trickled down her back as she approached the source, her heart racing. She fought the urge to turn back. "Just a loose shelf," she murmured under her breath, yet her voice trembled. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she opened the cafeteria door, the smell of mildew hit her like a punch. The lights flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that twisted and morphed along the walls. Leah squinted as she peered into the darkness. It felt like something was lurking just beyond her field of vision, something alive. Panic clawed at her throat. Was it just her imagination, or was there an unmistakable sense that she was being watched? Leah stumbled backward, heart pounding. Dread washed over her as she thought of the old janitor who vanished decades ago, leaving nothing but ghostly rumors and a sense of heaviness lingering in the atmosphere. Had she been cleaning the same floors he once roamed? Just then, her phone buzzed, jolting her from her thoughts. What if Jake had seen something outside? He had been restless lately, speaking of figures in the shadows near their house. Her instincts kicked in. She had to protect Jake no matter the cost. Each second felt like an eternity as she made her way back toward the exit, determined to shield her son from whatever malignancy dwelled within the cursed halls of Bracken Junior High. The power flickered once more, and thunder boomed outside, rattling the windows. Leah gripped the handle of the mop tightly, knuckles white. What awaited her in the shadows? As she took a step forward, an ominous knock echoed from the basement door, her pulse racing. Had she truly left the safety of her home only to confront the very essence of fear? The door creaked open with a low groan, a haunting invitation into the unknown. Leah's breath caught in her throat. She had entered a collision course with darkness, and she was terrified to know what awaited in the depths below. Leah hesitated at the threshold of the basement door, its darkness engulfing her like a living creature. The power flickered again, plunging her momentarily into pitch blackness. Panic surged like ice in her veins. There was no turning back, she had to confront whatever lay below. Gripping her mop like a weapon, she took a deep breath and stepped inside. A musty, damp smell assaulted her senses as she descended the creaky wooden stairs. Each step felt like an agonizing fjord, stretching time into eternity. She kept herself from glancing back, afraid that if she did, she would lose her nerve completely. Once at the bottom, Leah squinted into the gloom. The faint light from her phone illuminated the concrete walls, revealing old stains that looked like a blend of rust and dried paint. She could almost hear whispers slithering through the air, taunting her resolve. Were they real? Or was she losing her mind? As her eyes adjusted, she spotted a faint light flickering at the far end of the room. Curiosity gnawed at her. The dim glow was magnetic, drawing Leah nearer despite the primal dread swelling in her chest. What could it possibly be? Was there someone or something in there? With tentative steps, she edged toward the source of the light. The floor beneath her feet felt slick and smooth, as if layers of secrets had been poured on the ground and frozen in time. Goosebumps prickled her arms. Leah thought of Jake again. Had he dared to come here? The light glimmered brighter as she approached, a weird shimmer dancing in the air. Just as she was about to reach out, a loud crash erupted behind her, shattering the silence like glass. Leah spun around, heart racing, the mop slipping from her grip. The basement door that she had just come through slammed shut, sealing her inside with whatever dark entity resided here. "Jake!" Leah screamed, her voice echoing in the confined space. She hammered on the door, panic clawing at her throat. The knuckles of her hands turned white with the effort. From behind the door, she heard laughter, low and mocking, an eerie echo that sent chills racing down her spine. It wasn't Jake. It was something else, something hungry that thrived on fear. "What do you want?" she shouted, her voice trembling. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by an unsettling silence. Leah could feel her heart beating against her ribs, an urgent reminder of her mortality. Suddenly, the flickering light in front of her intensified. Then it exploded into a burst of shadow, shapes twisting and coiling against the walls, creating figures that danced mockingly in the dimness. They were faces twisted, anguished, contorted into mouths that screamed without sound. Leah stumbled back, fear overwhelming her senses. She fumbled for the mop but found only splintered wood where it had fallen. The light began pulsating, driving a visceral terror deep into her gut. She had to escape. Their whispers grew louder, clamoring for her attention. She turned back to the door, which suddenly creaked open ever so slightly, a narrow suggestion of escape beckoning her. But she hesitated, feeling the pull of the shadows behind her so strong that it rooted her to the spot. With a roar echoing from the darkness, the shapes lunged toward her, and Leah was no longer in control. She sprinted towards the exit, heart hammering, knocking fiercely on the door as it swung wider. But as she reached for the handle, something cold wrapped around her ankle, pulling her back into the abyss. What waited for her in that haunted dark? And would she ever see Jake again? Leah felt the icy grip around her ankle tighten like a vice. It tugged her down, anchoring her to the ground as she screamed, her voice powerless against the malevolent forces at work. Shadows leapt toward her, and the air around her thickened, burning her lungs. She clawed at the slippery floor, desperately trying to pull herself free, heart racing, body quaking with fear. Those faces emerged fully now, their silent screams plastering themselves against the walls, stretching with grotesque longing as if trying to escape. Leah's world shrank to the size of that basement, a dark pit of despair. She couldn't think. All she felt was the encroaching dread and the undeniable urge to flee. Just when she thought she couldn't fight against the grip anymore, it released, and she rolled forward, barely catching herself on her hands. The door behind her swung wide, a dark maw waiting to consume her again. Would the laughter behind it return? Would it now laugh at her failure? Leah scrambled to her feet, heart pounding furiously. She dove through the door, half expecting the shadows to lunge after her. But they didn't. Not yet. As she passed through, the door slammed shut behind her, narrowing the distance between her and the malevolence below. Outside, the dim hallway light flickered uncertainly, casting long shadows that seemed to creep toward her with every passing heartbeat. She leaned against the cool wall, gasping for breath. You should just run. Get out of here. But at the back of her mind, the thought lingered, Jake could still be down there. Without a second thought, she turned around, baring her teeth against the impending dread as she grasped the doorknob. It felt hot under her palm, leaving her fingers tingling. This wasn't just a basement, it was a battleground between good and evil, sanity and madness. She pushed the door open slowly, expecting the wave of darkness to hit her, but instead, she was met with eerie silence. The basement was now vacant. The pulsating light was gone, leaving behind a chilling darkness that felt alive. Cautious, Leah stepped inside again. The air felt different, thick and almost tangible, like stepping into murky water. She moved deeper, scanning the edges of the basement, searching for any sign of Jake. Jake! She called, her voice trembling, echoing into the void. Nothing but the weighty silence responded. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She jumped, the shock jolting through her like electricity. Fumbling, she pulled it out, relieved to see a message from Jake flashing on the screen. Where are you? The relief was brief. The feeling in her gut twisted. He was still down here somewhere, or was he? As she typed back frantically, a sudden noise broke her concentration, a dragging sound unmistakable in the stillness, the kind that made every hair on her body stand on end. She turned, eyes darting toward the source. The laughter, now more sinister than before, echoed through the basement, louder and sharper. It seemed to surround her, playing tricks with her mind, and then, along one of the shadowy walls, a figure emerged. It was too big to be Jake, too twisted. The harsh glow of the basement light illuminated it just enough for her to see. Hollow eyes, a rictus grin, and something wet glistening around its snarl. Leah's blood ran cold. She stumbled backwards, the floor slick underneath her. There's no escape. Come play with us, it whispered, slithering closer. In that moment, she knew. She had to get out and find Jake. The door was still open, but the longer she stayed, the more the shadows threatened to sweep her away. But just as she turned to flee, a deeper darkness loomed, swallowing the light behind her. What do you want? She breathed, paralyzed by fear. She didn't want to know the answer. The air thickened, choking her, and she could almost hear the laughter again, wrapping around her like a shroud. Now she needed to find Jake, but could she survive this hell long enough to do so? What else awaited her in the dark, just out of sight? And who was the figure that had learned her name? The laughter, that twisted melody of chaos, surrounded her now, echoing from every corner, bouncing off the walls like a malevolent symphony. Leah's breath quickened, heart hammering in her chest as the shadows warped, swaying like dark dancers inviting her closer. Come play with us, the voice coiled around her, curling under her skin. That twisted figure, licking at the edges of her vision, crept nearer, its movements fluid and unnatural. It seemed to inhale the darkness, feeding off Leah's fear, causing her stomach to churn. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't. Jake! She shouted again, more forcefully. Panic fueled her voice, edging on desperation. If you're here, please respond. Silence swallowed her words. Just her, the shadows, and that dreadful figure now crawling out from the wall, its elongated limbs stretching slowly, deliberate, as if savoring her terror. Her teeth clenched against the chill coursing through her. The door. It was just behind her. Leah planted her feet, adrenaline surging. She could leap, backtrack, but what would happen if that thing grabbed her again? It was too late for doubts. Steeling herself, she whirled around, but the darkness shifted, stealing the light and wrapping itself around her. She stumbled. The world seemed to tilt, and for a moment, she was suspended in pure, paralyzing dread. That's when she heard it, a faint whisper barely resonating against the backdrop of laughter. Help me, Jake. The sound clawed through her, tearing her from her paralysis. She focused on it, on the hope buried deep within the horror. Squaring her shoulders, she turned back toward the void. Where are you? Leah shouted, pushing deeper into the basement as the figure retreated slightly, as if annoyed by her defiance. "Help me." The voice grew louder, almost tangible. It was now mixed with a whimper, like a plea wrapped in sorrow. She thought she recognized Jake's voice. As she pressed further, the shadows thickened, but Leah had resolved to confront whatever lay ahead. "Jake! I'm coming!" she cried, pulling the dark air into her lungs. The walls began to pulse, flickering with flashes of gruesome memories. Faces, like the ones she had seen earlier, appeared again, morphed into twisted caricatures of agony. They reached out toward her, but Leah pushed forward. Fueled by the resonating sound, she navigated through the darkness, pushed by instinct. The dim lights flickered on and off, each burst illuminating those lost and desperate faces, revealing fleeting glimpses of what might have been once. Just as she rounded the final corner, a new sound reached her ears, a soft groan that pulled at her heart, dragging her closer. "Leah, please!" It was unmistakably Jake. But his voice, it trembled and wavered, as if it came from somewhere far in the depths of hell itself. "Jake!" In one swift motion, Leah turned toward what should have been the last stretch out of that accursed basement. But the way was blocked. Thick, amorphous shadows writhed and twisted, coiling around the doorway like a serpent. The figure stood against it, smile wide and eyes hollow, a twisted guardian of her boyfriend's fate. She was trapped between her fear of that monstrosity and her desperate need to rescue Jake. The darkness had a hold on her more now than ever, creeping into her thoughts, clawing at her resolve. "You can't save him," the figure hissed, its voice a low rumble, piercing through Leah. It began to step closer, the fetid stench of decay wafting toward her. Leah felt her knees weaken. The air thinned and darkened, making each breath a struggle. Suddenly, a crash from the other side of the demons unleashed chaos. A door splintered, and Leah's heart leaped, but dread sunk in. Was it help or the monster trying to devour them both? "Leah!" There it was again, Jake's voice, closer now, filled with urgency. "Hang on. I'm coming." She yelled back, plunging forward, but as she fought through the vampiric shadows, Leah realized, was she stepping toward salvation or deeper into the abyss? And what if she wasn't truly meant to find Jake? What if he was already lost? She hesitated, sweat beading on her brow. Just as the figure lunged, a blinding light erupted behind her, illuminating the dark, what lay on the other side. Did it promise escape or doom? The blinding light stung Leah's eyes, splitting the darkness into shimmering shards. She shielded her face, heart racing, unsure if the spark of illumination heralded a savior or a deeper threat. That sickening laugh faded, swallowed by the brilliance. "Leah!" The voice called again, stronger, braver. Jake's voice. Hope surged as she turned towards the source, her pulse hammering against her ribs. The writhing shadows shrank back, grudgingly retreating into the far corners where the darkness grew heavier. There, amongst the light, she spotted a figure. A silhouette bleeding through the rays, familiar yet obscured. "Jake!" She shouted again, her voice echoing pure desperation and joy fighting for supremacy. But the moment was fleeting. The laughter returned, thick and taunting, a sinister undertone creeping back into the air. The figure began to distort, bending unnaturally. It was as if Jake's face was wearing a mask of horror, flickering in and out, a trick of the light. Leah's joy soured into a potent mix of fear and confusion. "Help me!" The voice crackled, terrified. But was that really Jake or was it another illusion crafted by the lurking darkness? She pressed forward despite her instinct telling her to halt, crawling toward the figure, reaching out as if to chase away the shadows. "I'm coming. Hold on." But with every step, the light flickered, and the shadows danced closer, brushing against her skin like ice. Each whisper that coated the air sent shivers down her spine. "You shouldn't have come here," they sang, their mournful tones reverberating in her ears. As she neared, the light sputtered again, temporarily revealing ghastly expressions etched upon the walls. A sea of torment stretched like highlights of horror. They reached out with anguished hands, desperate to pull her into their unspeakable void. Leah stumbled, wading through their silent screams, her chest tight with panic. The souls were warning her. She had to get out. "Leah, please." The urgency in Jake's words shot through her, then, a blinding flash erupted, followed by an ear-splitting crash behind her. She spun around to see the door she had entered burst open with a guttural roar, a terrifying darkness spilling in, hungry and vicious. A second monster, more grotesque than the first, emerged, teeth bared and eyes glowing like dying embers. "Run!" The new monster growled, its voice a jarring mix of terror and rage. Leah froze for one split second, then instinct took over. She turned and sprinted toward what she hoped was Jake, harder, faster, her feet pounding against the ground. The shadows clawed at her heels, dragging her down, whispering lies that twisted her heart. "You'll never make it," they hissed, "you are lost." But she couldn't dwell on those words. Pumping her arms, she felt the air grow thick, wanting to push her back into the darkened pits of the basement. Leah closed her eyes as adrenaline took control, driven by the haunting echoes of Jake's voice. "Fight. You have to fight." As she lurched forward, she felt an unseen force lash out and latch onto her ankle, sending her sprawling. Pain shot through her leg as she twisted to look back, and in that moment, horror revealed itself. Shadows swarmed around her, grasping, pulling, and laughing that wicked, twisted laughter. "Help me please." The voice called again, this time from beneath the weight of darkness. It felt muffled, distant, gathering every ounce of resolve she had. Leah glanced behind to see not just the figure she feared, the monstrous guardian, but also Jake, crumpled beneath the weight of shadows, his eyes wide with terror, fading from view. "Leah. Please. Jake." She screamed, scuttling backward, trying to pry away from the gripping hands that threatened to consume her. For a fleeting second, she had a decision to make: flee or fight. Were they both doomed to be swallowed by the malevolent abyss? With rage coursing through her veins, Leah lunged toward him once more, ready to claw back against the tides of despair. But as she reached out, the figures surrounding them transformed. Faces that appeared around her morphed into the likeness of those she thought she'd lost. Panicked voices screamed warnings, shadows moved with purpose, canceling her every effort. Would she let the darkness take what little light remained? In a moment of sheer defiance, she roared, "No." But was it enough? The world spun, shadows encasing her entirely before she could grasp the truth, and then everything went black. In that suffocating silence, where all sounds faded into an unforgiving void, Leah was left wondering, had she stepped into a nightmare she could never escape? Or was there still a chance to save Jake, to claw their way back to the surface? What awaited them now in that purgatory of despair? The darkness enveloped Leah like a suffocating blanket, wrapping her in a silence so thick it felt tangible. She gasped, fumbling to push away the suffocating weight pressing down on her chest. Panic clawed at her mind, spreading like wildfire through her veins. Every corner of her consciousness screamed for her to wake up, but all that greeted her was the heavy stillness. "Jake!" she called, her voice a mere whisper in the void. No response. Just endless emptiness. A sudden chill shot through her, embroiling her senses in an icy grip. Shadows flickered at the edges of her mind, black tendrils curling and writhing, teasing her with echoes of a laughter that slithered through the silence. It was mocking, taunting her, a reminder of the horrors just beyond her reach. Blind instinct kicked in. Leah scrambled to her feet, heart hammering against her ribcage. The air felt thick, almost liquid in its resistance as she pushed onward, desperate to break free from the claustrophobic dark. She couldn't stay here. She had to find Jake. Wherever she turned, she felt eyes watching her. Unseen entities lurking, hungry to steal whatever light remained. Each step echoed, the sound swallowed by the void's darkness, amplifying her dread. Leah helped the voice, faint and flickering like a dying flame, ignited her hopelessness anew. It was Jake. She was sure of it. "Hold on," she cried, stumbling into the inky void, clawing at the unseen walls. "I'm coming." The ground beneath her felt unstable, shifting like quicksand, as if the basement itself was a living entity determined to trap her deeper. Shadows coiled tighter, the whispers growing louder, swirling around her like a tempest. "You can't escape, you belong to us," they crooned, their voices sharp and serrated. Leah struggled against the rising tide of despair. "No!" she shouted, voice trembling. "I want to let you take him." In that moment of resolve, she felt warmth surge through her. It flickered just like the light had before. She had to focus, to harness her will against the abyss. Drawing from that flicker, she twisted the air with purpose, projecting her thoughts toward Jake. "Jake! I believe you. We can find each other." Her words were a fragile thread through the darkness, but she pushed them out anyway. With every ounce of strength she had, she pictured his face, the warmth of his smile, their shared moments. That glimmer of hope helped cut through the dread wrapping around her. Another flash. An electric jolt through the expanse. The shadows hesitated, momentarily retreating as if afraid of what she was conjuring. Leah seized the moment, running faster, letting adrenaline propel her. "I'm right here. Jake." Then, she stopped cold, eyes widening in horror. A silhouette materialized in the chaos, shifting in and out like a broken film reel. It was Jake, but the joy of seeing him blinked out like a candle in the wind. His features were twisted in agony, eyes clouded with desperation. "Leah, save yourself," he rasped, voice barely audible. The shadows encircled him, swallowing his form inch by inch. "Jake, no!" She lunged toward him, but the density of the shadows yanked her back, and she was thrown against a jagged wall of darkness. The pain grounded her, but fear surged as she saw pieces of him being devoured. He was fading, a specter being pulled apart, not entirely gone, but losing his grip on reality. Would she abandon him, or would she brave the encroaching void? Leah's heart raced. Every instinct told her to fight, to save him. She couldn't just stand by, watching him slip into oblivion. "Jake!" she screamed, desperation clawing her throat. The shadows wriggled closer, snaking about her legs. "I will come for you. I promise." But as the darkness thickened, coiling around them, Leah felt a cold finger of dread crawl down her spine. What if the promise was the very trap meant to ensnare her? The shimmering distance shuddered, a glimpse of light growing weaker. Would the shadows extinguish everything, even the hope she held? If Leah dared to leap into the chasm, would it offer a way out, or would it plunge them into a fate worse than the one they faced? Desperation melded into uncertainty, and Leah stood at the brink, staring into the existential abyss that threatened to swallow them whole. Leah's heart pounded as she hovered on the precipice of despair. The terror pulsing through her veins made every nerve scream. The darkness stretched like an endless gaping maw, inviting her to step in and be consumed. "Jake!" Her voice cracked under the weight of her fear. He was slipping away, pulled into the swirling shadows. Despair wrapped around her, tight as a vice. She took one shaky step into the abyss, driven by an urgency that felt primal. "I'm coming." Each word fueled her courage, a flicker of defiance against the darkness. With every ounce of willpower, she pushed back against the suffocating shadows, convinced somehow they would part for her. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, the darkness reacted like a living thing. It churned and writhed, pulling her deeper with insatiable hunger. Cold tendrils coiled around her ankles, tugging with a force that threatened to rip her apart. She stumbled, gasping as the shadows receded just long enough to give her hope. Leah darted forward, reaching for Jake. "Don't let go!" she cried out, desperately trying to close the distance between them. Each step felt like wading through tar. The shadows followed her relentlessly, murmuring in a language that was both enticing and horrid. Join us," but Leah pushed the whispers aside, focusing solely on the fading figure of Jake. He was almost gone, just a flicker of what he once was. The sight twisted her gut with panic. Leah, please! His voice was disintegrating, cracking like brittle glass. And then it happened. The darkness thickened, and Leah felt an icy spike of dread shoot through her. She realized she was alone now, adrift in a sea of nothingness. Jake was rapidly becoming just a memory. Don't give up on me, she screamed into the void. The shadows pulsated with a wicked energy, and she felt their chill crawl along her skin, each caress stealing another piece of her spirit. Leah could feel her resolve slipping away, like grains of sand through her fingers. In that moment of despair, a flicker of light caught her eye from beneath the encroaching darkness. It shimmered like a distant star, overly bright in this suffocating night. Her instincts screamed at her, survival was at stake. Leah hesitated, terrified of what lay beyond the light, but it drew her in like a magnet. Jake! She shouted. I'm coming. She sprinted toward the light, feeling the shadows claw at her, their whispers becoming shrill and frantic. Turn back. You don't belong there. But Leah continued, even as the shadows wrapped tighter around her. She grasped the light, a warmth spreading through her fingertips. It burned hot, a beacon amidst the void. She felt energy course through her body, igniting a fire she thought had been extinguished. In an instant, she was yanked backward as if tethered to the dark. The light flickered wildly, lifting her closer to its warmth. But the shadows latched onto her with desperate fury, hissing and thrashing like trapped animals. Fight it! Leah urged herself, even as doubt gnawed at her heart. The tangled mess of dark screamed back, you are ours. With one last surge of will, she tore her eyes away from the comforting glow, focusing on Jake. His image burned in her mind. He was fighting, too. She could sense him, lost but not gone, desperately clinging to hope. Jake! She called, forcing her voice above the tumult. I will find you. A tremor shook the darkness. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if Leah's words cut through their grip. No, they shrieked, but she didn't stop. Together. We can break this. The warmth became searing. The shadows shrieked, their grip faltering as the light surged, illuminating the terror beneath. Leah felt herself pulled hard, the darkness finally releasing its hold. But just as victory seemed at hand, the light flickered ominously, dimming. From the depths, a guttural growl echoed, a sound that vibrated through Leah's bones. She stumbled backward, fear rooting her in place. The shadows had twisted around her, forming a grotesque shape that loomed, its features indistinguishable. You think you can escape? It rasped, voice oozing malice. No. She whispered, hopelessness flooding her once more as the entity stretched toward her, closing in like a noose, and in that breathless moment, Leah realized this was not just about Jake's salvation. It was about her very soul. Would she step into the light and confront the horror? Or would she surrender to the shadows, lost forever? The choice loomed before her as the entity advanced, its presence suffocating. Leah's breath hitched in her throat as the malevolent force loomed closer. The entity twisted its form, casting shadows that danced grotesquely around her. The air thickened with dread. She could feel the weight of their dark intent, a sensation more suffocating than the darkness itself. Step into the light. A voice echoed within her mind, a memory of Jake urging her on. But would the light really guide her, or was it just another trap laid by the darkness? She felt a tug at her heart, urging her to fight, to push forward. Get away from me! Leah shouted, summoning every ounce of strength. Her voice quaked, but fury ignited within her. The shadows writhed in response, seemingly enraged by her resistance. With a determined flicker of courage, Leah took a step back. She couldn't let despair claim her. I am not afraid. She yelled, grounding herself in the truth of her love for Jake. The shadows recoiled slightly, but the entity only laughed, a sound like nails scraping against metal. How precious, it taunted. You think love can save you? You're nothing but prey in this realm. Then she saw it, an opening in the swirling darkness behind the entity, fleeting and dim. Hope ignited within her. Leah didn't consider the risk. I'm not your prey, she yelled. With all her might, she sprinted toward that fragile opening, adrenaline driving her forward. The shadows snapped at her heels, their whispers like venomous snakes. Come back. You belong to us. But Leah kept her focus, refusing to glance back. The growls of the entity echoed behind her, growing more violent with each step. As she neared the opening, tendrils of dark energy lashed out, but she ducked and rolled, barely avoiding their grasp. The cold was like ice, burning her skin, but the warmth of the light just ahead urged her on. Then, she was through. The moment she crossed, it felt like bursting through the surface of water, gasping for oxygen as she tumbled into a world bathed in light. Yet the comfort was short-lived. The enclosure around her twisted into a dim room, walls lined with grotesque faces carved in stone, their eyes shimmering with a malevolent glow. It was familiar yet entirely foreign, like stepping into a nightmare she had once dreamed. Her heart sank as she backed away, each face appearing more sinister than the last, whispering her name, a chorus of taunts, promising despair. You thought you escaped? Look around. What is this place? She murmured, dread flooding her senses. The room began to pulse with life as the carved faces wriggled and contorted, laughter echoing through her mind. Suddenly, a door on the far side of the room creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure. Leah squinted, her breath hitching again. The figure stepped forward, and a chill shot down her spine. It was Jake, but something was different. The light dimmed as the door closed behind him, blocking any escape. Leah, he spoke, but his voice held an eerie echo, a distortion that shattered her heart. Why did you come here? Jake. I was looking for you. She rushed forward, but he raised a hand, stopping her in her tracks. I'm not the Jake you knew anymore. I chose the darkness to survive, he said coldly, his eyes void of warmth. You should have stayed away. Panic gripped her. The walls of the room seemed to constrict, the laughter of the faces growing louder as if mocking her desperation. Leah shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. No. We can fight it together. But Jake's face twisted in agony, or was it pleasure? There's no fighting here, Leah. You're far too late. Before she could respond, the shadows around her stirred with new vigor. They slithered toward her, the familiar voices ramping up to a deafening screech. She felt her legs falter, the darkness threatening to swallow her whole once again. Leah's thoughts raced. What had she done? Had she really thought love could conquer this? The walls broke into fragments, darkness spilling into her consciousness. With the figment of Jake before her, torn between being a savior and a lost soul, Leah needed to make a choice: accept the shadows or try to rescue the remnants of the person she loved. As the shadows circled tighter, Leah's resolve hardened. I won't give up on us. She screamed, praying for a miracle, and in that moment, that outburst of defiance birthed a blinding light from deep inside her, illuminating the darkness and sending the shadows recoiling. What was it unleashed? Where would it lead? Leah took a breath, ready for the consequences, knowing full well that the terror was far from over. The light expanded around Leah, surprising the shadows that danced like flames licking at the walls. It surged, crashing against the dark, pulsating energy like a storm against the shore. Leah's heart raced, every beat echoing with hope and fear. She could feel something shifting within her, a primal force awakening. Fight! The voice echoed again, stronger now. It wasn't just Jake's voice, it belonged to everyone she loved, urging her on, weaving through the dark tension that threatened to bind her. The din of sinister laughter receded slightly, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. Leah squinted into the brightness, searching for Jake's face, but the glow wrapped around him, obscuring the truth beneath. Was he still in there? Was there a way to bring him back? Leah, he whispered again, his voice like a specter reaching for her through the haze. "You can't. You don't understand. I understand more than you think," she shouted, her voice resonating with the power of her love and determination. "We can break free. Together." The glowing light intensified, wrapping her in warmth. She felt threads of despair loosening their grip, but shadows bled back, fraying her luminous resolve. They twisted and turned, weaving terrifying shapes amidst the glowing fibers, a grotesque ballet determined to reclaim her. "Leah! Join me!" Jake's voice was a haunting melody now, a siren song laced with sorrow. He reached out, offering his hand. "You're not bound to this suffering. Let it take you. You know it's easier." For a fleeting moment, Leah hesitated. The idea of surrendering to the darkness, of letting go of her burdens, held a terrible allure. Gradual then, a flicker of doubt ignited the troubling nagging in her mind. Was this truly Jake, or merely a cunning echo masked in familiarity? "No!" she roared, digging deep for strength. "I won't succumb to this. I choose the light. I choose you, Jake." To her surprise, the shadows recoiled, hissing in outrage. The laughter crescendoed again but turned into something more sinister and raw. Leah could feel the energy of her resolve, fueled by love, pushing back against the weight of despair. The dark realm around her shimmered, the faces on the walls twisting and thrashing, screaming in fury and confusion. The room began to morph, the walls rippling like a canvas in rage as reality unraveled. New doors, hidden before, sprang forth in the corners of her vision, each shimmering with potential. Leah's heart pounded harder. This was a pivotal moment. "Choose." A voice thundered ominously, reverberating through the chaos. It was chaotic, shrill, a siren echoing across landscapes of darkness and light. "Will you follow him into the abyss, or forge a new path, one that may lead to your ultimate destruction?" Leah looked back at Jake, the wretched shadows flickering around him like snakes ready to strike. She could sense the truth lying beneath his distorted face. She could sense the love that was still there, buried deep. Could she save him? The shadows lunged, reaching for her like hungry predators, the chill of death clinging to their grasp. The walls trembled, whispering echoes of pain when suddenly, a vision flashed before her eyes, her past, moments with Jake when love and laughter painted their world, a future that could exist if she made the right choice. "Leah, it's your decision." Jake's eyes flickered for the briefest moment, revealing a glimmer of hope. With a deep breath that tasted like desperation, Leah extended her hand toward Jake, battling her fear. "I'll find a way for us. I'm not afraid." In that instant, the light burst forth again, vivid and sharp, racing toward Jake and the dark pit around him. Would it unite them or tear them apart? As the energy enveloped them both, Leah felt a surge of power, but the shadows fought back fiercely, screeching in a frenzy. And then the darkness howled in rage, a savage battle unfolding just as Leah's world shuddered violently. What price would she have to pay? Would she find Jake, or lose herself in the grasp of the darkness forever? Leah's heart raced as she faced the chaotic battle of light against dark. The shadows writhed, hissing in fury, desperate to reclaim their hold. The energy from her love surged through her, igniting a fire that seemed almost otherworldly, a warmth that fought against the choking despair. Each heartbeat resonated with the determination to bring Jake back, to reclaim the essence of who they were. "I won't lose you," Leah shouted. Clenching her fists, she squeezed her eyes shut, drawing strength from every moment they had shared, the laughter, the adventures, the quiet evenings spent in each other's company. She envisioned pulling Jake back, unlocking the door to their future together. "Join me, Leah." Jake's voice broke through, twisted by layers of pain. The flickering shadows twisted around him, but something familiar glimmered in the depths of his eyes. "No!" Leah screamed, the sound raw and full of defiance. "You are not gone. I refuse to believe it." And as if answering her declaration, the light surged with renewed vigor, pushing back against the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. The walls pulsed with energy, shimmering like a ripple of hope. In that charged moment, Leah felt an inexplicable connection, radiating through her and spreading like a pulse through the very fibers of the shadows. "You have power," she urged Jake, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I believe in us. Fight with me." As she raised her hand toward him, a blinding beam erupted from her palms, an extension of herself, forcing the shadows to recoil. Simultaneously, she felt Jake's presence shift. The darkness around him strained against the light, thrashing as if caught in a vice. "Leah." His twisted features began to align, and for a brief instant, Leah saw him, her Jake, the warmth of his smile resplendent beneath the veil of horror. "Save yourself." His voice was strained, each word heavy with the weight of despair. "No!" Leah shouted, tears slicing down her cheeks as she pushed straining shadows aside. "I'm not leaving you." Steeling herself, she charged towards him, fear and love colliding in a maelstrom. Each step she took felt like an act of rebellion against fate. The shadows lashed out violently, hissing threats that clawed at her mind. "You can't have him," she screamed, the persistence of her love weaving a barrier against their malevolence. "We are stronger than you'll ever understand." With every ounce of her spirit, she wrapped her love around Jake like a lifeline. The shadows writhed, their grip loosening as his face sparked with recognition, eyes clearing for a fleeting moment. "Leah, but then, his light dimmed, swallowed by the shadows threatening to engulf him once more. She could sense his heartbeat fading, the echoes reverberating through the dark, a thunderous reminder that time was fleeting. If they were to break free, it had to be now. Leah lunged toward him, grasping for his hand. "We can fight this. Together." And as their hands connected, an electric surge pulsed through her body, their connection igniting an explosion of light that lit up the entire room. The laughter, once mocking, was replaced by anguished cries as the shadows screeched, unraveling under the intensity of their combined love. Fissures appeared in the darkness, glowing light spilling through, illuminating the grotesque faces that had once haunted her. "Leah. Hold on." Jake's voice grew stronger as he pulled her closer. The shadows screeched, twisting desperately around them, trying to reclaim what they thought was theirs. Leah could feel her resolve fortifying with each moment they remained entwined where love met the ferocious fight against darkness. With each breath they took together, the air grew clearer, lighter. The entity looming above them shrieked, its form becoming less distinct, less threatening, as if the very essence of light burned parts of it away. Leah felt the cracks of hope spreading through the darkness, felt Jake rise against the pull the shadows had on him. In that crescendo of vibrant energy, Leah screamed, "You don't belong to the dark. You are light." And with those words, with that fierce belief firmly lodged in her heart, they broke free. They erupted into an explosion of blinding light, dispelling the oppressive weight that had shackled them for so long. The twisted faces that lined the shadowed room crumbled, fading away like phantoms in the dawn. Together, they stumbled forward, bursting into a world filled with warmth and love, an open field bathed in golden sunlight. Leah gasped, tears flowing freely now, the warmth of the light enveloping them like a warm embrace. She turned to Jake, and they collapsed into each other. "I thought I lost you," Leah sobbed, trembling as their hands intertwined. They both breathed in the air around them, thick with freedom, relief, and the brilliance of a new chapter awaiting them. "I want to let go again," Jake murmured, his voice steady as he wiped her tears. "Never again." And together, stronger and unyielding, they turned away from the darkness, ready to embrace whatever the future held. They stepped forward into the light, leaving behind a haunted past, emerging into the promise of hope forever fronted against any shadows that dared threaten their bond. As they walked away, hand in hand, Leah felt an undeniable lightness in her chest, an unbreakable spirit that would never be dimmed again. Now, as we exit this journey, listen up. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss any of our exclusive stories next time. Smash that like button now to keep this channel alive and thriving. Your support means everything, and hey, go ahead and flood the comments section with your thoughts. What are your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion? Let us hear it. don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finale. They deserve to join us on this terrifying journey.